Hi, everyone, and welcome to Transitions. We're recording today from the Hunters Bay Radio Satellite Studio at Nipissing University in Bracebridge. I'm Anne Wagner, your host, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Kim Doughty, who's with the District of Muskoka. Welcome, Kim.
Thanks for having me, Anne.
Well, we're just thrilled you could come in today and chat with us. Now, you have a rather unique role at the district. Could you tell us a little bit about what it is you do?
Yeah, I sure can. I'm a social worker by trade, and I have been at the District of Muskoka for 3 years. And I am the case manager for a program called HIP, which stands for Hope, Inspiration, and Possibility. And it's an umbrella program that supports 3 categories, one being people that are dealing with addictions and mental health challenges. And we also have a case manager that supports vulnerable youth between the ages of 16 and 25. And the third piece is looked after by a colleague who supports older adults. She case manages them in transitioning onto ODSP or getting psychological assessments so that they can move forward in their lives. So it's up until last year, those 3 programs were working in silos, and we just thought it would be appropriate to bring all 3 together. And so we get referrals on a weekly basis, and we look at those as a group and decide what program they would be best suited to.
Great. Now, one of the things that struck me when you explained what HIP stands for, it sounds like it's a very positively based orientation, this program.
Absolutely it is. We try to always approach each client from a strength-based perspective. Our philosophy is always starting where the client is, not where we think they should be. And in a nutshell, we just try to create some capacity in our clients, give them some opportunities. We promote self-efficacy, and most importantly, we try to instill some hope that there is opportunity to still experience some joy in your life, no matter what the barriers and challenges are that you're facing.
Wonderful. So what would you say are some of the common challenges that are faced by your clients?
So, again, all of my clients would be on Ontario Works, which is our provincial social assistance program. So they would come through the door looking for financial supports. They would also be interviewed by an employment case manager. And at that point, after perhaps 1 or maybe 3 dialogues, a young person or any individual that's on Ontario Works might express that they have some other pieces going on in their lives that don't allow them to move forward to a job at this point. Often those are things like addictions. A lot of them struggle with depression and anxiety. A lot of them have issues around housing. A lot of them have not completed high school. So when we think about the determinants of health, all of those things play into these vulnerable people's lives. So we look at a lot of different kinds of challenges.
And that must be hard for a client. It's often very stigmatizing just to go through the process of applying for support.
Yeah.
And then there may be that perception that they're going to be looked down upon, or there's going to be a perception that they're trying to get benefits they don't deserve. So it sounds like your program is positioned in such a way to challenge some of those stereotypes.
Absolutely. And you're completely correct. It's one of the hardest things for anyone to do. Basically, that's the door of last resort for many clients. They would much rather be working and being self-sufficient. But life can be hard and difficult, and we try to, right from the get-go, suggest that this is the most courageous thing they can do, is asking for help, and that we're all in this together. And we try to immediately, the first thing I ask a client is, what would you suggest are your strengths? And some of them have a really hard time identifying anything, but after a little bit of conversation and just reminding them that they are valuable human beings, it's amazing how strengths come out. Yeah.
And so then after those initial conversations, you start identifying their strengths. What would some of your strategies be when you're working with clients? What are some of the ways that you assist them?
Okay. So the most important work I do is developing what I call a therapeutic alliances with each client. So all the therapies in the world aren't going to mean anything to them unless they learn to trust and believe in you. So we spend some time just getting to know each other. I use a common line that says, I'm just simply here to walk by your side. You're the master of your own life. And let's make some decisions and set some goals together and try and move forward. So I do a pretty in-depth assessment, hearing their life story. It's really important that I know where they've been so that I can understand where they want to go. And once that assessment's done, we start from this moment on and we create a future story. And that future story is very unique and subjective, depending on what each person wants to do. All of them, in the end, want to be independent and be able to sustain some kind of engagement in their community or work. So those are some of the things we work towards. We set really small goals that we call SMARTs. So they're sustainable, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they're time measured. And yeah, we just start there and we build on each small strength. We set up a goal, we give them a few weeks to try and meet that goal, and we either celebrate that, yes, they made the goal, or perhaps they haven't, and then we just sort of debrief on why it didn't happen, how we can shift it up. So with each small accomplishment, people start to feel like they are worthy again. And so that's one of the techniques I use. We also do a lot of engaging in the community. We try to set them up with other agencies that can be supportive, whether it's around housing or literacy or mental health supports. We take them wherever they need to be. Once a month, we have a Seize the Day, which is basically just a day to take them out of their lives and have some fun.
Oh, wow.
So we've been to Algonquin Park dog sledding, and we've been to Limberlost Reserve, where we've done some snowshoeing. And we also always have a little educational piece, and we eat some nutritious food. And people are so appreciative that somebody basically gives a hoot about them and wants to offer them some fun stuff. And so those are some of the things that we do. And I just want to really drive home the message that it's a privilege to be able to work with these people. In my world, they're some of the most courageous beings out there. Tons of resiliency, and so that's what we focus on, only the good things. And, everyone's life has setbacks and challenges, and we know that, and we talk about that, and we just move forward.
That sounds like an incredibly affirming message. Mm-hmm. I expect that people walking through the door must just be totally taken aback by this approach when they first meet you.
Yeah, so I feel lucky that most of the clients that come through my door stay for a while, and we develop a working relationship. I mean, there is still a professional element that goes along with this, but yeah, I think that often for many of them, it's the first time in their lives that they've heard that they have any value. And so it's as simple as that. Like, it's not nuclear science. Just letting someone know that someone cares about them and respects them and wants to help is the first step on their journey to wellness.
And I think that would be so centrally important and significant, given that they may be at the lowest point of their life. Mm-hmm. They're in a position where they have to reach out for help in a way that's really difficult, coming through your doors. And then rather than being degraded and asked to fill in innumerable forms and feeling judged, here you come across with warmth and acceptance.
Exactly, yeah. There are a couple of screening tools. I should mention that. So the province requires us to do a couple of tools that remind them that perhaps they may be dealing with an addiction or a mental health issue, but really aren't ready to exact any change. And they need to be ready to exact change in order to get into the program. But once that's been established, I say to them that their work right now is just moving forward in their lives, and we call it whatever it takes to get to that place of wholeness, and whatever that looks like for you, which gives them some relief from thinking, I got to get work, I've got to find a job, or else I'm going to lose my funding here. So that is the end goal for sure for all of our clients, is employability. But until we address the issues at hand, they just can't go out into, they can, but it's not sustainable for them.
So getting back to your original point of starting where your client is.
Yeah. So that's the program in a nutshell.
Excellent. Well, at this point, we're just going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with Transitions. Hi, welcome back to Transitions. I'm your host, Anne Wagner, and today I'm talking with Kim Doughty. And Kim, you were telling us about your program and the basic philosophy of the program in terms of wellness and promoting health. And you also mentioned the seize the day philosophy. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that and what guides those activities that you plan.
Sure, I can. Actually, I had the privilege of working with a Master's of Social Work student for the last few months, and Amy brought to us the notion that being out in nature can make huge shifts in a person's mental health, or even just their feeling for that day. So she came up with it's not her term, she came up with the idea that ecotherapy, which can look like a number of different things. It can look like working with animals, it can look like being out in the park, it can look like camping or canoeing, it can look like gardening therapy in community gardens, can really support clients to make some changes in their life in a pretty straightforward, simple way. As I was saying at the break, there are some clients that have never even been into Algonquin Park, and so for them to go there and just understand the beauty of nature and the therapeutic effects of nature can be, in my mind, life-changing. So we're starting to integrate that. Amy came up with some really great ideas, and we're going to continue to implement that as time goes on.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And again, I just have to say it's really unexpected, given the kind of work you're doing in terms of working within the district structure, and that there's this strong affirmation of self and of worth. That I think is wonderful and can have a really powerful effect on your clients.
Absolutely. I think that it's the answer to anything that ails you, right? I think when people start to feel like no matter what's going on in their life that they can make a difference and that they are valued, we see sometimes significant, sometimes really small changes, but we always see change moving forward. And that's a good thing. And if that's what we do in a period of time, then we're happy, and we think we have moved people along.
So do you think that's a useful strategy in terms of also supporting people when they're making decisions about how to address maybe some mental health challenges they're experiencing or maybe some addictions issues?
Absolutely. So I'm a trauma-focused practitioner, so I remind all of my clients who are dealing with mental health issues or addictions that I would say that in almost all cases they have experienced some kind of trauma in their life. So when we have a discussion around their life story, I explain to them what trauma can be, and it can be many different things. Trauma can be living in poverty. Trauma can be abandonment. Trauma can be loss or grief. And it can also be any form of abuse, mental, spiritual, or emotional abuse. And when you listen to your stories, they start to say, wow, this is what happened to me at 5 and at 10 and at 15 and at 20. And it just creates some lightness and some acceptance for them that, yeah, maybe this is why I made some of the decisions I made. Or maybe when I was 13, why I was so anxious or so depressed, right? Many of these people haven't attached in a healthy way like most of us have. And so that creates its own whole host of social problems as well. And then you put them in a school system where they're required to learn in a certain way, and it becomes really difficult. So, yeah, I think just giving them some information around why they've made the choices and that it's okay, and that, by the way, you're a hero being here today and walking through my door, having faced many of those things. So people cope in any way they can, and until they learn healthier ways to cope, they're going to continue to self-soothe in the manner that they've become accustomed to.
So it sounds like a big piece of the work is reframing their experiences for them.
Absolutely.
And showing them their own potential in a way, would you say?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And learning them to become their own best advocate, right? To say, I'm worth it, and I deserve this, and yeah, I made some mistakes, but I still can have some good things going on in my life.
So do you think this speaks to the situation of many people who won't necessarily find themselves in the position of coming to your door, not necessarily seeking assistance, but maybe in a similar situation, facing maybe making some bad choices, not being in a positive place for themselves.
Well, it's certainly my belief, for sure, that if we can just listen and be respectful and then do a bit of reframing and play it back in a little different light. And, we always embrace some techniques around changing thoughts and behaviors, right? Or just acceptance of our thoughts and behaviors and, learning to live in the moment a little bit more. I think that absolutely there can be significant change.
And you had mentioned how you set goals with your clients, and then you give them a few weeks, and then you check back in with them. Maybe you could give us some concrete examples of what those goals might look like?
Absolutely. So perhaps we have a person that has a drug addiction and uses drugs on a daily basis. So we might start with as small of a goal as, in the next 2 weeks, perhaps one day each week you could not or try not to drink or drug during that day, just one day, or maybe 1 hour, or maybe one morning. And it has to be small to begin with, because if it gets too large, they can't meet the expectation, and then they feel like they failed once again. So we start with really small goals like that. It could be something like, this week I am going to go out and look for one friend to have coffee with, or I could go out and maybe read one piece of the newspaper, just to get them motivated again to step back into life. And then we grow on that. So, okay, you managed once a week not to do that. Maybe we're going to ante that up. Let's try 2 or 3 times a week. And they sometimes come back and want to massage it. I can do this much of it, but I can't do that much of it. So what it does is it creates, we start to teach them how to make their own decisions, because I can't do that for them. So we try to help them help themselves, right? Because I'm only in their life for a short period of time, and hopefully at the end of our time together, they'll have some tools, some life skills.
And again, when you're talking, I just think about how this could be expanded to those of us who aren't in any sort of therapeutic relationship. Because I think with the whole notion of things like New Year's resolutions, it's all or nothing. I'm going to do this to the nth degree, or I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is that's really not helpful.
No, it isn't. It's just setting yourself up for failure. So, as I said earlier, we talk about SMART goals all the time. There has to be sustainable for them. Can they manage
Sustainable.
it? Measurable. Like, let's say, okay, in the next 14 days, we're going to work on this one. Attainable, right? Yes, I can manage it. It's realistic for them, not for me. And so, we work on those things, and actually I have them come up with the goal, and then I might add a little bit in or take a little bit away. But so I had, if I were to say as an example, one day next week, try not to use any drugs or alcohol, they'll say, oh no, I can do that for 5 days. Well, I know right off the hop that's not realistic. So we pull it back and we meet halfway sometimes, and we go from there. So, and it's been a journey, because some of the goals have been really easy for clients to manage, and others have just been not sustainable at all. But it's a learning process, right? We learn together. And the goals are always based on things that are not happening in their life that they would like to see happening in their life.
So very client-directed.
Absolutely.
Which speaks to what you were saying, that you want them to make decisions.
Absolutely. It's all about them. It's their journey. They are in charge. I walk by their side, and we journey together, and hopefully there's some small successes.
And do clients ever keep in touch with you? Do you ever hear success stories?
In social work, we help a lot. We don't often hear about all the good things, and that's okay. But yes, I've had one amazing young woman who was severely drug-addled and now has graduated from the program, has enrolled at Georgian. She's going back to school. She hopes to be a veterinarian someday. She's lost 100 pounds. She's clean and sober and has been for a period of time. So, there are some success stories. We've had, and the smallest success stories are sometimes the greatest, when someone just says thank you to me, and you've made a big change in my life. So I hang on to those small successes, and people are appreciative. We also have to remember that these people live in the moment. They live in chaos all the time. They're not like, we can't put our middle class expectations and values on them. They live in a different world. So the challenges for me sometimes are getting them to be accountable and show up on time. But when I hear why that hasn't happened, we again try to come up with a goal so that it can happen together. So yeah, I have to be reminded that their lives are challenging. And they're not worrying about whether their kids are going to university. They're worrying about what they're going to have for dinner tonight, right? So
absolutely. Well, it sounds like you're doing some amazing work, and I feel more hopeful just having spoken to you.
Well, that's great, Anne. I'm happy that we could put a hopeful spin on it, because it can be really deep, hard, dark work, and it can be deep, hard challenges for our clients. So we're always trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, that's wonderful. I couldn't sum it up better than that. Thanks so much for coming in today, Kim.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can reach us at transitions@hbr@gmail.com. That's transitions@hbr@gmail.com. Until next week, bye for now.